we're reading Look Back in Anger, a play in 3 acts by John Osborne. Playing Jimmy Porter,
Kevin Bain.
Playing Cliff Lewis,
David Mackler.
Playing Alison Porter,
Gail Lemelbam.
Playing Helena Charles,
Rachel Schefrin.
And playing Colonel REDFERN.
Stephen Ackerman.
Act 1. The Porter's one-room flat in a large Midland town, early evening in April. At rise of curtain, Jimmy and Cliff are seated in the armchairs. All that we can see of either of them is 2 pairs of legs, sprawled way out beyond the newspapers, which hide the rest of them from sight. They are both reading. Beside them and between them is a jungle of newspapers and weeklies. When we do eventually see them, we find that Jimmy is a tall, thin young man, about 25, wearing a very worn tweed jacket and flannels. Clouds of smoke fill the room from the pipe he is smoking. He has a disconcerting mixture of sincerity and cheerful malice, of tenderness and freebooting cruelty, restless. Importunate, full of pride, a combination which alienates the sensitive and insensitive alike. Blistering honesty, or apparent honesty, like his, makes few friends. To many he may seem sensitive to the point of vulgarity, to others he is simply a loudmouth. To be as vehement as he is, to be almost non-committal. Cliff is the same age, short, dark, big-boned, wearing a pullover and gray, new but very creased trousers. He is easy and relaxed, almost to lethargy, with the rather sad, natural intelligence of the self-taught. If Jimmy alienates love, Cliff seems to exact it. Demonstrations of it, at least, even from the cautious. He is a soothing, natural counterpart to Jimmy. Standing left is Alison. She is leaning over an ironing board. Beside her is a pile of clothes. Hers is the most elusive personality to catch in the uneasy polyphony of these 3 people. She is turned in a different key, a key of well-bred malaise that is often drowned in the robust orchestration of the other 2. Hanging over the grubby but expensive skirt she is wearing is a cherry red shirt of Jimmy's, but she manages somehow to look quite elegant in it. She is roughly the same age as the men. Somehow their combined physical oddity makes her beauty more striking than it really is. She is tall, slim, and dark. The bones of her face are long and delicate. There is a surprising reservation about her eyes, which are so large and deep they should make equivocation impossible. The room is still, smoke-filled. The only sound is the occasional thud of Alison's iron on the ironing board. It is of those chilly spring evenings, all cloud and shadows. Presently, Jimmy throws his paper down.
Why do I do this every Sunday? Even the book reviews seem to be the same as last week's. Different books, same reviews. Have you finished that one yet?
Not yet.
I've just read 3 whole columns on the English novel. Half of it's in French. Do the Sunday papers make you feel ignorant?
Not off.
Well, you are ignorant. You're just a peasant. And what about you? You're not a peasant, are you?
What's that?
I said, do the papers make you feel you're not so brilliant after all?
Oh, I haven't read them yet.
I didn't ask you that. I said...
Leave the poor girl alone. Poor girlie alone. She's busy.
Well, she can talk, can she? You can talk, can't you? You can express an opinion, or does the white woman's burden make it impossible to think?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening properly.
You bet you weren't listening. Old Porter talks, and everyone turns over and goes to sleep. And Mrs. Porter gets them all going with that first yawn.
Leave her alone, I said.
All right, dear, go back to sleep. It was only me talking. You know, talking, remember? I'm sorry.
Stop yelling. I'm trying to read.
Why do you bother? You can't understand a word of it.
Uh-huh.
You're too ignorant.
Yes, and uneducated. Now, shut up, will you?
Why don't you get my wife to explain it to you? She's educated. That's right, isn't it?
Leave her alone, I said.
Do that again, you Welsh ruffian, and I'll pull your ears off.
Listen, I'm trying to better myself. Let me get on with it, you big horrible man. Give it me.
Oh, give it to him, Jimmy. For heaven's sake, I can't think.
Yes. Come on, give me the paper. She can't think.
Can't think? She hasn't had a thought for years, have you?
Okay, something happened. Oh, I see. Sorry.
You haven't had a thought for years, have you?
No.
I'm getting hungry.
Oh, no, not already.
He's a bloody pig.
I'm not a pig. I just like food, that's all.
Like it? You're like a sexual maniac, only with you, it's food. You'll end up in the news of the world, boy. Oh, you wait. James Porter, age 25, was bound over last week after pleading guilty to interfering with a small cabbage and 2 tins of beans on his way home from the Builder's Arms. The accused said he had been feeling well for some time and had been having blackouts. He asked for his good record as an air raid warden, second class, taken into account.
Oh, yes. I like to eat. I'd like to live too. Do you mind?
I don't see any use in your eating at all. You never get any fatter.
People like me don't get fat. I've tried to tell you before. We just burn everything up. Now shut up while I read. You can't make me some more tea.
Oh, good God, you've just had a great pot full. I only had 1 cup.
Like hell. Make some more.
Isn't that right? Didn't I only have 1 cup?
That's right.
Oh, there you are. And she only had 1 cup. I saw you guzzled a lot.
Put the kettle on.
Put it on yourself. You've creased up my paper.
I'm the only one who knows how to treat a paper or anything else in this house. Girl here wants to know whether her boyfriend will lose all respect for her if he gives him what he asks for, stupid bitch.
Just let me get at her, that's all.
Who buys this damn thing? Haven't you read the other posh paper yet?
Which?
Well, there are only 2 posh papers on a Sunday, the one you're reading, and this one. Come on, let me have that one, and you take this.
Oh, all right. I was only reading the Bishop of Bromley. How you doing, darling?
All right, thank you, dear.
Why don't you leave all that and sit down for a bit? You look tired.
I haven't much more to do.
Ah, she's a beautiful girl, and she?
Well, that's what they all tell me.
A lovely, delicious paw you've got. I'm gonna bite it off.
Don't. I'll burn this shirt.
Give her her finger back and don't be so sickening. What's the Bishop of Bromley say?
Oh, it says here that he makes a very moving appeal to all Christians to do all they can to assist in the manufacture of the H-bomb.
Oh, yes, well, that's quite moving, I suppose. Are you moved, my darling?
Well, naturally.
There you are. Even my wife is moved. I ought to send the bishop a subscription. Let's see. What else does he say? Dum-dum-dum-dum-dum. Ah, yes, he's upset because someone has suggested that he supports the rich against the poor. He says he denies the difference of class distinctions. This idea has been persistently and wickedly fostered by the working classes. Well, did you read that bit? You don't suppose your father could have written it, do you?
Written what?
What I just read, of course.
Why should my father have written it?
Sounds rather like Daddy, don't you think?
Does it?
Is the Bishop of Bromley his nom de plume, do you think?
Don't take any notice of him. He's being offensive, and it's so easy for him.
Did you read about the woman who went to the mass meeting of a certain American evangelist at Earl's Court? She went forward to declare herself a lover or whatever it is, and in the rush of converts to get to the front, she broke 4 ribs and got kicked in the head. She was yelling her head off in agony, but with 50,000 people putting all they got onto onward Christian soldiers, nobody even knew she was there. Sometimes I wonder if there isn't something wrong with me. Now, what about that tea?
What tea?
Put the kettle on.
Do you want me to make more tea?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
Do you want some, Cliff?
No, he doesn't. How much longer will you be doing that?
Won't be long.
God, how I hate Sundays. It's always so depressing, always the same. We never seem to get any further, do we? Always the same ritual, reading the papers, drinking tea, ironing, a few more hours, and another week gone. Our youth is slipping away. Do you know that?
What's that?
Oh, nothing. Nothing. Damn you, damn both of you, damn them all.
Let's go to the pictures. What do you say, lovely?
I don't think I'll be able to. Perhaps Jimmy would like to go. Would you like to go?
And have me enjoyment ruined by the Sunday night? Yobs in the front row, no thank you. Did you read Priestley's piece this week? Why on earth, I ask, I don't know. I know damned well you haven't. Why do I spend 9 pence in that damn paper every week? Nobody reads it except me. Nobody can be bothered. No one can raise themselves out of their delicious sloth. You two will drive me round the bend soon. I know it. As sure as I'm sitting here, I know you're going to drive me mad. Oh, heavens, how I long for a little ordinary human enthusiasm. Just enthusiasm, that's all. I want to hear a warm, thrilling voice cry out, hallelujah, hallelujah, I'm alive, I have an idea. Why don't we have a little game? Let's pretend that we're human beings and that we're actually alive. Just for a while. What do you say? Let's pretend we're human. Oh, brother, it's such a long time since I was with anyone who got enthusiastic about anything.
What did he say?
What did who say?
Mr. Priestley.
What he always says, I suppose. He's like Daddy, casting well-fed glances back to the Edwardian twilight from his comfortable, disenfranchised wilderness. What the devil have you done to those trousers?
Done?
Are they the ones you bought last weekend? Look at them. Do you see what he's done to those new trousers?
You are naughty, Cliff. They look dreadful.
You spend good money on a new pair of trousers and then sprawl about him like a savage. What do you think you're going to do when I'm not around to look after you? Well, what are you going to do? Tell me.
I don't know. What am I going to do, lovely?
You'd better take them off.
Yes, go on, take them off, and I'll kick your behind for you.
I'll give them a press while I've got the iron on.
Okay. I'll just empty the pockets.
Give me those matches, will you?
Oh, you're not going to start up that old pipe again, are you? It stinks the place out. Doesn't it smell awful?
I don't mind it. I've got used to it.
She's a great one for getting used to things. If she were to die and wake up in paradise, after the first 5 minutes, she'd have got used to it.
Well, thank you, lovely. Give me a cigarette, will you?
Don't give him one.
I can't stand the stink of that old pipe any longer. I must have a cigarette.
I thought the doctor said no cigarettes.
Oh, why doesn't he shut up?
All right, they're your ulcers. Go ahead and have a bellyache if that's what you want. I give up. I give up. I'm sick of doing things for people. And all for what? Nobody thinks. Nobody cares. No beliefs, no convictions, no enthusiasm. Just another Sunday evening. Perhaps there's a concert on. Make some more tea. Oh, yes, there's a Vaughan Williams. Well, that's something anyway. Something strong, something simple, something English. I suppose people like me aren't supposed to be very patriotic. Somebody said, what was it? We get our cooking from Paris. That's a laugh. Our politics from Moscow and our morals from Port Said. Something like that anyway. Who was it? Well, you wouldn't know anyway. I hate to admit it, but I think I can understand how her daddy must have felt when he came back from India after all those years away. The old Edwardian brigade to make their brief little world look pretty tempting. All homemade cakes and croquette, bright ideas, bright uniforms, always the same picture, high summer, the long days in the sun, slim volumes of verse, crisp linen, the smell of starch. What a romantic picture. Phony too, of course. It must have rained sometimes. Still, even I regretted it somehow, phony or not. If you've no world of your own, it's rather pleasant to regret the passing of someone else's. I must be getting sentimental, but I must say it's pretty dreary living in the American age. Unless you're an American, of course. Perhaps all our children will be Americans. That's a thought, isn't it? I said, that's a thought.
You did?
You sit.
Oh.
Is your friend Webster coming tonight?
He might drop in. You know what he is.
Well, I hope he doesn't. I don't think I could take Webster tonight.
I thought you said he was the only person who spoke your language.
So he is. Different dialect, but same language. I like him. He's got bite, edge, drive.
Enthusiasm.
You've got it. When he comes here, I begin to feel exhilarated. He doesn't like me, but he gives me something which is more than I get from most people. Not since...
Yes, we know. Not since you were living with Madeline.
Who's Madeline?
Oh, wake up, dear. You've heard about Madeline enough times. She was his mistress, remember? When he was 14, or was it 13?
18.
He owes just about everything to Madeline.
I get mixed up with all your women. Was she the one all those years older than you?
10 years.
A proper little Marchbanks you are.
What time is the concert on? Oh, I feel so...
Oh, I feel so sleepy. Don't feel like standing behind that Lincoln sweet stall again tomorrow. Why don't you do it on your own and let me sleep in?
I've got to be at the factory first thing to get some more stock, so you'll have to put up on your own another 5 minutes. She had more animation in her little finger than you two put together.
Who did?
Madeline.
Her curiosity about things and about people was staggering. It wasn't just a naive nosiness. With her, it was simply the delight of being awake and watching.
Perhaps I will make some tea after all.
Just to be with her was an adventure. Even to sit on the top of the bus with her was like setting out on Ulysses.
I wouldn't have said Webster was much like Ulysses. He's an ugly little devil.
I'm not talking about Webster, stupid. He's all right, though, in his way. A sort of female Emily Bronte. He's the only one of your friends who's worth tuppence anyway. I'm surprised you get on with him.
So he is, I think.
He's not only got guts, but sensitivity as well. That's about the rarest combination I can think of. None of your other friends got either.
Jimmy, please don't go on.
Your friends, there's a shower for you.
Oh, dry up. Let her get on with my trousers.
Don't think I could provoke her. Nothing I could do would provoke her, not even if I would have dropped dead.
Then drop.
They're either militant like her mommy and daddy, militant, arrogant, and full of malice, or vague. She's somewhere between the two.
Why don't you listen to that concert of yours and don't stand behind me? That blooming droning on behind me gives me a funny feeling down the spine.
Jimmy gives his ears a twist, and Cliff roars with pain.
That hurt, you rotten sadist. I wish you'd kick his head in for him.
Haven't you ever seen her brother Nigel, the straight-backed, chinless wonder from Sandhurst? I only met him once myself. He asked me to step outside, and when I told his mother, she was evil-minded.
And did you?
Certainly. He's a big chap. Well, you've never heard so many well-bred commonplaces come from beneath the same bowler hat. The platitude from outer space, that's Brother Nigel. He'll end up in the cabinet one day, make no mistake. But somewhere at the back of that mind is the vague knowledge that he and his pals have been plundering and fooling everybody for generations. Now, Nigel is just about as vague as you can get without being actually invisible. And invisible politicians aren't much use to anyone, not even to his supporters. And nothing is more vague about Nigel than his knowledge. His knowledge of life and ordinary human beings is so hazy, he really deserves some sort of decoration for it, a medal inscribed for vagary in the field. But it wouldn't do for him to be troubled by any stabs of conscience, however. Vague. But besides, he's a patriot and an Englishman, and he doesn't like the idea that he may have to be selling out his countrymen all these years. So what does he do? The only thing he can do, seek sanctuary in his own stupidity. The only way to keep things as much like they always have been as possible is to make any alternative too much for your poor, tiny brain to grasp. It takes some doing nowadays, it really does. But they knew all about character building at Nigel's school, and he'll make it all right. Don't you worry, he'll make it, and what's more, he'll do better than anybody else. It started to rain, and that's all it needs. This room and the rain. Yes, That's the little woman's family. You know Mummy and Daddy, of course. And don't let the Marquis of Queensberry manner fool you. They'll kick you in the groin when you're handing your hat to the maid. And as for Nigel and Alison, they're what they sound like. Sympathetic, phlegmatic, and pusillanimous.
I bet that concert started by now. Shall I put it on?
I looked up that word the other day. It's one of those words I've never been quite sure of, but always thought I knew.
What was that?
I told you. Pusillanimous. Do you know what it means? Well, neither did I, really. All this time, I had been married to this woman, this monument to non-attachment, and suddenly I discovered there is actually a word that sums her up. Not just an adjective in the English language to describe her with, it's her name, pusillanimous. It sounds like some fleshy Roman matron, doesn't it? The lady pusillanimous seen here with her husband Sextus on their way to the games. Poor old Sextus. If he were to be put into a Hollywood film, he's so unimpressive they'd make some poor British actor play the part. He doesn't know it, but before these beefcake Christians will make off with his wife in the wonder of stereophonic sound before the picture's over, the lady pusillanimous has been promised a brighter, easier world than old Sextus can ever offer her. Hi, Pusey. Let's say we get the hell down to the arena and maybe feed ourselves to a couple of lions, huh?
God help me. If he doesn't stop, I'll go out of my mind in a minute.
Well, why don't you? That would be something anyway. But I haven't told you what it means yet, have I? I don't have to tell her. She knows. In fact, if my pronunciation is at fault, she'll probably wait for a suitably public moment to correct it. Here it is. I quote, pusillanimous. Adjective, wanting of firmness of mind, of small courage, having a little mind, mean-spirited, cowardly, timid of mind, from the Latin pusillis, very little, and animus, the mind. That's my wife. That's her, isn't it? Behold, the lady pusillanimous. Hi, Pusey. When's your next picture?
Jimmy watches her, waiting for her to break. For no more than a flash, Alison's face seems to contort, and it looks as if she might throw her head back and scream. But it passes. She's used to these carefully rehearsed attacks and doesn't look as though he'll get his triumph for tonight. She carries on with her ironing. Jimmy crosses and switches on the radio. The Vaughan Williams concert has started. He goes back to his chair, leans back into it, and closes his eyes.
There you are, dear. They're not very good, but they'll do for now.
Oh, that's lovely.
Now try and look after them. I'll give them a real press later on.
Thank you, you beautiful darling girl. Mwah.
Let's have a cigarette, shall we?
Oh, that's a good idea. Where are they?
On the stove. Do you want one, Jimmy?
No, thank you. I'm trying to listen. Do you mind?
Sorry, your lordship.
Do you have to make all that racket?
Oh, sorry.
It's quite a simple thing, you know, turning over a page. Anyway, that's my paper.
Oh, don't be so mean.
Price 9 pence, obtainable from any news agents. Now let me hear the music, for God's sake. Are you going to be doing much longer doing that?
Why?
Perhaps you haven't noticed it, but it's interfering with the radio.
I'm sorry. I shan't be much longer.
I wanted to listen to the concert, that's all.
Well, what's stopping you?
Everyone's making such a din. That's what's stopping me.
Well, I'm very sorry, but I can't just stop everything because you want to listen to music.
Why not?
Really, Jimmy, you're like a child.
Don't try and patronize me. She's so clumsy. I watch for her to do the same thing every night, the way she jumps on the bed as she was stamping on someone's face and draws the curtains back with a great clatter in that casually destructive way of hers. It's like someone launching a battleship. Have you ever noticed how noisy women are? Have you? The way they kick the floor about simply walking over it. Or have you watched them sit at their dressing tables, dropping their weapons and banging down their bits of boxes and brushes and lipsticks? I've watched her doing it night after night. When you see a woman in front of her bedroom mirror, you realize what a refined sort of a butcher she is. Did you ever see some dirty old Arab sticking his fingers into some mess of lamb fat and gristle? Well, she's just like that. Thank God they don't have many women surgeons. Those primitive hands would have your guts out in no time. Flip, out it comes like the powder out of its box. Flop, back it goes like the powder puff on the table.
Oh, stop it.
She'd drop your guts like hair clips and fluff all over the floor. You've got to be fundamentally insensitive to be as noisy and as clumsy as that. I had a flat underneath a couple of girls once. You heard every damn thing those bastards did all day and night. The most simple, everyday actions were a sort of assault course on your sensibilities. I used to plead with them. I even got to screaming most of the ingenious obscenities I could think of, up the stairs at them, but nothing would move them. With those two, even a simple visit to the lavatory sounded like a medieval siege. Oh, they beat me in the end. I had to go. I expect they're still at it, or they're probably married by now and driving some poor devils out of their minds, slamming their doors, stamping their high heels, banging their irons and saucepans. The eternal flaming racket of the female. Oh, hell. Now the bloody bells have started. Wrap it up, will you? Stop ringing those bells. There's somebody going crazy in here. I don't want to hear them.
Stop shouting. You'll have Miss Drury up here.
I don't give a damn about Miss Drury. That mild old gentlewoman doesn't fool me, even if she takes you in too. She's an old robber. She gets more than enough out of us for this place every week. Anyway, she's probably in church, swinging on those bloody bells.
Come on now, be a good boy. I'll take us all out and we'll have a drink.
They're not open yet. It's Sunday, remember? Anyway, it's raining.
Well, shall we dance? Do you come here often?
Only in the mating season. All right. Very funny. Let me go.
Not until you've apologized for being nasty to everyone. Do you think bosoms will be in or out this year?
Your teeth will be out in a minute if you don't let go.
Makes it right up. They collapse to the floor, struggling. This is routine, but Alison is getting close to a breaking point all the same. Cliff manages to break away, finds himself in front of the ironing board. Jimmy springs up, they grapple.
Look out, for heaven's sake. It's more like a zoo every day.
Jimmy makes a frantic, deliberate effort and manages to push Cliff onto the ironing board and into Alison. The board collapses, Cliff falls against her. They end up in a heap on the floor. Alison cries out in pain. Jimmy looks down at them, dazed and breathless.
She's hurt. You all right?
Oh, what does it look like?
She's burnt her arm on the iron.
Darling, I'm sorry.
Get out.
I'm sorry, believe me. You think I did it on purpose?
Clear out of my sight.
Come and sit down.
Yes.
You look a bit white. Are you all right?
I'm all right now.
Let's have a look at your arm. Yes, quite red. That's going to be painful. What should I get?
Oh, nothing much. Bit of soap on it will do. I never can remember what you do with burns.
I'll just pop down to the bathroom and get some. Are you sure you're all right?
Yes.
Won't be a minute.
She leans back in the chair, looks up at the ceiling. She breathes in deeply and brings her hands to her face. She winces as she feels the pain in her arm and she lets it fall. She runs her hand through her hair.
Oh, God.
It's this scented muck. You think it'll be all right?
That'll do.
Here we are then. Let's have your arm. I've put it under the tap. It's quite soft. I'll do it ever so gently. All right? You're a brave girl.
I don't feel very brave. I really don't, Cliff. I don't think I can take much more. I think I feel rather sick.
All over now. Would you like me to get you something? Don't upset yourself, lovely.
Where is he?
In my room.
What's he doing?
Lying on the bed, reading, I think. Is that better?
Bless you.
I don't think I'd have the courage to live on my own again, in spite of everything. I'm pretty rough and Pretty ordinary, really, and I've seen worse on my own. And you get fond of people, too, worse luck.
I don't think I want anything more to do with love anymore. I can't take it.
You're too young to start giving up. Too young and too lovely. Perhaps I better put a bandage on that. You think so?
There's some on the dressing table. I keep looking back as far as I can remember, and I can't think what it was to feel young, really young. Jimmy said the same thing to me the other day. I pretended not to be listening because I knew that would hurt him, I suppose. And of course, he got savage, just like tonight, but I knew just what he meant. I suppose it would have been so easy to say, yes, darling, I know just what you mean. I know what you're feeling. It's those easy things that seem to be so impossible with us.
I'm wondering how much longer I can go on watching you two tearing the insides out of each other. It looks pretty ugly sometimes.
You wouldn't seriously think of leaving us, would you?
I suppose not.
I think I'm frightened. If only I knew what was going to happen.
I'd give it here. Yell out if I hurt you.
Cliff.
What is it, lovely?
Nothing.
I said, what is it?
You see, I'm pregnant.
I'll need some scissors.
They're over there.
That is something, isn't it? When did you find this out?
A few days ago. It was a bit of a shock.
Yes, I dare say.
After 3 years of married life, I have to get caught out now.
None of us is infallible, I suppose. Must say I'm surprised, though.
It's always been out of the question. What with this place and no money and oh, everything. He's resented it. I know. What can you do?
You haven't told him yet.
Not yet.
What are you going to do?
I've no idea.
That too tight.
Fine, thank you.
Is it
Too late to avert the situation? I'm not certain yet. Maybe not. If not, there won't be any problem, will there?
and if it is too late, why don't you tell him now? After all, he does love you. You don't need me to tell you that.
Can't you see? He'll suspect my motives at once. He never stops telling himself that I know how vulnerable he is. Tonight, it might be all right. We'll make love. But later, we'd both lie awake, watching for the light to come through the little window and dreading it. In the morning, he'd feel hoaxed and as if I were trying to kill him in that worst way of all. He'd watch me growing bigger every day, and I wouldn't dare to look at him.
You may have to face it, lovely.
Jimmy's got his own private morality, as you know, what my mother calls loose. It is pretty free, of course, but it's very harsh, too. You know, it's funny, but we never slept together before we were married.
It certainly is, knowing him.
We knew each other such a short time. Everything moved at such a pace we didn't have much opportunity. And afterwards, he actually taunted me with my virginity. He was quite angry about it, as if I had deceived him in some strange way. He seemed to think an untouched woman would defile him.
I've never heard you talking like this about him. He'd be quite pleased.
Yes, he would. Do you think he's right?
What about?
Oh, everything.
Well, I suppose he and I think the same about a lot of things because we're alike in some ways. We both come from working people, if you like. Oh, I know some of his mother's relatives are pretty posh, but he hates them as much as he hates yours. I don't know why. Anyway, he gets on with me because I'm common. Common as dirt, that's me.
You think I should tell him about the baby?
It'll be all right. You'll see. Tell him.
He kisses her, enter Jimmy. He looks at them curiously, but without surprise. They are both aware of him, but make no sign of it. He crosses to the armchair and sits down next to them. He picks up a paper, starts looking at it. Cliff glances at him, Alison's head against his cheek.
There you are, you old devil. Where have you been?
You know damn well where I've been. How's your arm?
Oh, it's all right. It wasn't much.
She's beautiful, isn't she?
You seem to think so.
Why the hell she married you, I'll never know.
You think she'd have been better off with you?
I'm not her type, am I, darling?
I'm not sure what my type is.
Why don't you both get into bed and have it done with?
You know, I think he really means that.
I do. I can't concentrate with two of you standing there like that.
He's just an old Puritan at heart.
Perhaps I am, at that. Anyway, you both look pretty silly slobbering over each other.
I think she's beautiful, and so do you, only you're too much of a pig to say so.
You're just a sexy little Welshman, and you know it. Mummy and Daddy turn pale and face the east every time they remember she's married to me. But if they saw all this going on, they'd collapse. Wonder what they would do, incidentally. Send for the police, I expect. Have you got a cigarette?
I'll have a look.
He gets more like a little mouse every day, doesn't he? He really does look like one. Look at those ears and that face and those little short legs.
That's because he is a mouse.
I'm a mouse.
A randy little mouse.
I'm a mouse. I'm a mouse. I'm a randy little mouse. That's the Morris dance.
A what?
A Morris dance. That's Morris dance strictly for mice.
You stink. You really do. Do you know that?
Not as bad as you horrible old bear. You're a stinking old bear. Do you hear me?
Then let go of my foot, you whimsy little half-wit. You're making my stomach heave. I'm resting. If you don't let go, I'll cut off your nasty, great, slimy tail.
I've run out of cigarettes.
Go out and get me some more cigarettes and stop playing the fool.
Okay.
Here's half a crown. The shop on the corner will be open.
Right you are. Mwah. Don't forget.
Now, get the hell out of here.
Hey, Shorty.
What do you want?
Make a nice pot of tea.
I'll kill you first.
That's my boy.
How's it feeling?
Fine. It wasn't anything.
All this fooling about can get a bit dangerous. I'm sorry.
I know.
I mean it.
There's no need.
I did it on purpose.
Yes.
There's hardly a moment when I'm not watching and wanting you. I've got to hit out somehow. Nearly 4 years of being in the same room with you night and day, and I still can't stop my sweat breaking out when I see you doing something as ordinary as leaning over an ironing board. Trouble is you get used to people. Even their trivialities become indispensable to you. Indispensable and a little mysterious. I think I must have a lot of old stuck. Nobody wants it. What are we going to do tonight?
What would you like to do? Drink?
I know what I want now.
Well, you'll have to wait till the proper time.
There's no such thing.
Cliff will be back in a minute.
What do you mean by don't forget?
Something I've been meaning to tell you.
You're fond of him, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
He's the only friend I seem to have left now. People go away. You never see them again. I can remember lots of names, men and women, when I was at school. Watson, Roberts, Davies, Jenny's, Madeline, you. And there's you's mum, of course. I'd almost forgotten her. She's been a good friend to us, if you like. She's even let me buy the sweet stall off her in my own time. She only bought it for us anyway. She's so fond of you. I can never understand why you're so distant with her.
Jimmy, please, no.
You're very beautiful. A beautiful, great-eyed squirrel. Hoarded nut munching squirrel with highly polished, gleaming fur, and an ostrich feather for a tail.
Whee!
How I envy you.
Well, you're a jolly super bear too. A really so super marvelous bear.
Bears and squirrels are marvelous.
Marvelous and beautiful. Ooh, ooh.
What the hell's that?
That's a dance squirrels do when they're happy.
What makes you think you're happy?
Everything just seems all right suddenly, that's all. Jimmy.
Yes?
You know I told you I something to tell you?
Well?
Didn't get any further than the front door. Miss Drury hadn't gone to church after all. I couldn't get away from her. Someone on the phone for you.
On the phone? Who on earth is it?
Helena something?
Helena Charles?
Oh, that's it.
Thank you, Cliff. I won't be a minute.
You will. Oh, Miss Drury will keep you down there forever. She doesn't think we keep this place clean enough. Thought you were going to make some tea, you rotter. What's the matter, boyo?
That bitch.
Who?
Helena Charles.
Who is this Helena?
One of her old friends and one of my natural enemies. You're sitting on my chair.
Where are we going to go for a drink?
I don't know.
Well, you were all for it earlier on.
What does she want? What would make her ring up? If it can't be anything pleasant, oh well, we shall soon. For the rest of us, like Webster, for instance, he doesn't like me. They hardly ever do. I dare say he suspects me because I refuse to treat him either like a clown or as a tragic hero. He's like a man with a strawberry mark. Keep thrusting in your face because he can't believe it doesn't interest or horrify you. Writes long letters back to her mummy and never mentions me at all because I'm just a dirty word to her too. Well, what does your friend want?
She's at the station. She's coming over.
I see. She said, can I come over? And you said, my husband Jimmy, if you forgive me for using such a dirty word, will be delighted to see you. He'll kick your face in.
She's playing with the company at the Hippodrome this week, and she's got no digs. She can't find anywhere to stay.
That I don't believe.
So I said she could come here until she fixes something else. Miss Drury's got a spare room downstairs.
Why not have her in here? Did you tell her to bring her amour? Because she's going to need it.
Why don't you shut up, please?
Oh, my dear wife, you got so much to learn. I only hope you'll learn it one day. If only something would happen to you to wake you out of your beauty sleep. If you could have a child and it would die, let it grow, let a recognizable human face emerge from that little mass of India rubber and wrinkles. Please, if only I could watch your face that. I wonder if you might even become a recognizable human being yourself, but I doubt it. Do you know I never known the great pleasure of lovemaking when I didn't desire it myself? Oh, it's not that she hasn't her own kind of passion. She has the passion of a python. She just devours me whole every time as if I was some overlarge rabbit. That's me, that bulge around her navel. If you're wondering what it is, it's me, buried alive down there and going mad, smothered in that peaceful looking coil. Not a sound, not a flicker from her. She doesn't even rumble a little. You think that this indigestible mess would stir up some kind of tremor in those distended, overfed tripes. But not her. She'll go on sleeping and devouring until there's nothing left of me.
Alison's head goes back as if she were about to make some sound, but her mouth remains open and trembling as Cliff looks on. End of Act 1. Act 2, Scene 1. 2 weeks later in the evening, Alison is standing over the gas stove pouring water from the kettle into a large teapot. She's wearing a slip and her feet are bare. In the room across the hall, Jimmy is playing his jazz trumpet and intermittent bursts. Alison takes the pot to the table, which is laid for 4 people. The Sunday paper jungle around the 2 armchairs is as luxuriant as ever. It's late afternoon at the end of a hot day. She wipes her forehead, crosses to the dressing table, takes out a pair of stockings from one of the drawers, sits down and puts them on. While she is doing this, the door opens and Helena enters. She is the same age as Alison, medium height, and expensively dressed. Now and again, when she allows her rather judicial expression of alertness to soften, she is very attractive. Her sense of matriarchal authority makes most men who meet her anxious, not only to please, but impress, as if she were the gracious representative of visiting royalty. In this case, the royalty of that middle-class womanhood, which is so eminently secure in its divine rights that it can afford to tolerate the parliament and reasonably free assembly of its menfolk. Even from other young women like Alison, she receives her due of respect and admiration. In Jimmy, as one would expect, she arouses the rabble-rousing instincts of his spirit, and she is not accustomed to having to defend herself against catcalls. However, her sense of modesty, exalted responsibility enables her to behave with an impressive show of strength and dignity. Although the strain of this is beginning to tell on her a little, she is carrying a large salad colander.
Did you manage all right?
Of course. I prepared most meals in the last week, you know.
Yes, you have. It's been wonderful having someone to help. Another woman, I mean.
Oh, I'm enjoying it. Although I don't think I shall ever get used to having to go down to the bathroom every time I want some water or something.
It is primitive, isn't it?
Yes, it is rather. Looking after one man is really enough, but 2 is rather an undertaking.
Oh, Cliff looks after himself, more or less. In fact, he helps me quite a bit.
I can't say I've noticed it.
You've been doing it instead, I suppose.
I see.
You've settled in so easily somehow.
Why shouldn't I?
Not exactly what you're used to, is it?
And are you used to it?
Everything seems very different.
So you're not sorry you asked me to stay?
Of course not. Did you tell him his tea was ready?
I banged on the door of Cliff's room and yelled. He didn't answer, but he must have heard. I don't know where Cliff is.
I thought I'd feel cooler after a bath, but I feel hot again already. God, I wish he'd lose that damn trumpet.
I imagine that's for my benefit.
Miss Drury will ask us to go soon, I know. Thank goodness she isn't in. Listen to him.
Does he drink?
Drink? Not an alcoholic, if that's what you mean. We'll have the rest of the street banging on the door next.
It's almost as if he wanted to kill someone with it. And me in particular. I've never seen such hatred in someone's eyes before. It's slightly horrifying and oddly exciting.
He had his own jazz band once. That was when he was still a student, before I knew him. I rather think he liked to start another and give up the stall altogether.
Is Cliff in love with you?
No, I don't think so.
What about you? You look as though I've asked you a rather peculiar question. The way things are, you might as well be frank with me. I only want to help. After all, your behavior together is a little strange by most people's standards, to say the least.
You mean you've seen us embracing each other?
Well, it doesn't seem to go on as much as it did, I admit. Perhaps he finds my presence inhibiting, even if Jimmy isn't.
We're simply fond of each other. There's no more to it than that.
Darling, really. It can't be as simple as that.
You mean there must be something physical too? I suppose there is, but it's not exactly consuming. It's just a relaxed, cheerful sort of thing, like being warm in bed. You too comfortable to bother about moving for the sake of some other pleasure?
Well, I find it difficult to believe anyone's that lazy.
I think we are.
What about Jimmy? After all, he is your husband. Do you mean to say he actually approves of it?
It isn't easy to explain. It's what he would call a question of allegiances, and he expects you to be pretty literal about them. Not only about himself and all the things he believes in, his present and his future, but his past as well. All the people he admires and loves and has loved. The friends he used to know, people I've never even known and probably wouldn't have liked. His father who died years ago, even the other women he's loved. Do you understand?
Do you?
I've tried to, but I still can't bring myself to feel the way he does about things. I can't believe he's right somehow.
Well, that's something anyway.
If things had worked out with Cliff, it's because he's kind and lovable. And it worked because Cliff is such a nice person anyway. With Hugh, it was quite different.
You?
Hugh Tanner. He and Jimmy were friends almost from childhood. Mrs. Tanner is his mother.
Oh, yes, the one who started him off in the sweet business.
That's right. Well, after Jimmy and I were married, we'd no money, about £8.10 to actual fact, and no home. He didn't have a job. He'd only left the university about a year. No, left. I don't think one comes down from Jimmy's university. According to him, it's not even red brick, but white tile. Anyway, we went off to live in Hugh's flat. It was over a warehouse in Poplar.
Yes, I remember seeing the postmark on your letters.
Well, that was where I found myself on my wedding night. Hugh and I disliked each other on sight, and Jimmy knew it. He was so proud of us both, so pathetically anxious that we should take to each other like a child showing off his toys. We had a little wedding celebration, and the three of us tried to get tight on some cheap port they'd brought in. Hugh got more and more subtly insulting. He'd a rare talent for that. Jimmy got steadily depressed, and I just sat there listening to their talk, looking and feeling very stupid. For the first time in my life, I was cut off from the kind of people I'd always known. My family, my friends, everybody. And I'd burnt my boats. After all those weeks of brawling with Mummy and Daddy about Jimmy, I knew I couldn't appeal to them without looking foolish and cheap. It was just before the general election, I remember, and Nigel was busy getting himself into Parliament. He didn't have time for anyone but his constituents. Oh, he'd have been sweet and kind, I know.
Darling, why didn't you come to me?
You were away on tour in some play, I think.
So I was.
Those next few months at the flat in Poplar were a nightmare. I suppose I must be soft and squeamish and snobbish, but I felt as though I'd been dropped in a jungle. Couldn't believe that two educated people could be so savage and so uncompromising. Mummy has always said that Jimmy's utterly ruthless, but she hasn't met Hugh. He takes the first prize for ruthlessness from all comers. Together, they were frightening. They both came to regard me as a sort of hostage a few shares I had left, but it hardly kept us. Mummy made me sign everything over to her in trust when she knew I was really going to marry Jimmy.
Just as well, I imagine.
They soon thought of a way out of that. A brilliant campaign. They started inviting themselves, through me, to people's houses, friends of Nigel's and mine, friends of Daddy's, oh, everyone. The Argstons, the Tarnats, the Waynes.
Not the Waynes.
Just about everyone I'd known. Your people must have been among the few we missed out. It was just empty territory to them, and as I say, they used me as a hostage. We'd set out from headquarters in Poplar and carry out our raids on the enemy in Ward 1, Southwest 1, Southwest 3, West 8, in my name. We'd gate crash everywhere, cocktails, weekends, even a couple of house parties. I used to hope that one day somebody would have the guts to slam during them, wolfing their food and drinks and smoking their cigars like ruffians. Oh, they enjoyed themselves.
Apparently.
Hugh fairly reveled in the role of the barbarian invader. Sometimes I thought he might even dress the part, fur, spiked helmet, sword. He even got a fiver out of old man Wayne once. Blackmail, of course. People would have signed almost anything to get rid of us. He told him that we were about to be turned out of our flat for not paying the rent. At least it was true.
I don't understand you. You must have been crazy.
Afraid more than anything.
But letting them do it? Letting them get away with it? You managed to stop them stealing the silver, I suppose.
Oh, they knew their gorilla. But that was the only time we were more or less turned out.
It's almost unbelievable. I don't understand your part in it. Why? That's what I don't see. Why did you do
Marry him? There must be about 6 different answers. When the family came back from India, everything seemed, I don't know, unsettled. Anyway, Daddy seemed remote and rather irritable. And Mummy, well, you know Mummy. I didn't have much to worry about. I didn't know I was born, as Jimmy says. They were all intent on showing their contempt for this rather odd creature, but no one seemed quite sure how to do it. He'd come to the party on a bicycle, he told me, and there was oil all over his dinner jacket. It had been such a lovely day, and he'd been in the sun. Everything about him seemed to burn. His face, the edges of his hair glistened and seemed to spring off his head, and his eyes were so blue and full of the sun. He looked so young and frail, in spite of the tired line of his mouth. I knew I was taking on more than I was ever likely to be capable of bearing, but there never seemed to be any choice. Well, the howl of outrage and astonishment went up from the family, and that did it. Whether or no he was in love with me, that did it. He made up his mind to marry me. They did just about everything they could think of to stop us.
Yes, it wasn't a very pleasant business. But you can't see the point.
Jimmy went into battle with his axe swinging round his head, frail and so full of fire. I had never seen anything like it. The old story of the knight in shining armor, except that his armor didn't really shine very much.
And what about Hugh?
Things got steadily worse between us. He and Jimmy even went to some of Nigel's political meetings. They took bunches of their popular cronies with them and broke them up for it.
Oh, he's really a savage, isn't he?
Hugh was writing some novel or other, and he made up his mind he must go abroad, to China or some godforsaken place. He said that England was finished for us anyway. All the old gang was back, Dame Alison's mob, as he used to call it. The only real hope was to get out and try somewhere else. He wanted us to go with him, but Jimmy refused to go. There was a terrible, bitter row over it. Jimmy accused Hugh of giving up, and he thought it was wrong of him to go off forever and leave his mother all on her own. He was upset with the whole idea. They quarreled for days over it. I almost wished they'd both go and leave me behind. Anyway, they broke up. A few months later, we came by here, and Hugh went off to find the new millennium on his own. Sometimes I think Hugh's mother blames me for it all. Jimmy, too, in a way, although he's never said so. He never mentions it. But whenever that woman looks at me, I can feel her thinking, if it hadn't been for you, everything would have been all right. We'd all have been happy. Not that I dislike her. I don't. She's very sweet, in fact. Jimmy seems to adore her, principally because she's been poor almost all her life, and she's frankly ignorant. I'm quite aware how snobbish that sounds, but it happens to be the truth.
Alison, listen to me. You've got to make up your mind what you're going to do. You're going to have a baby, and you have new responsibility. Before it was different. There was only yourself at stake. But you can't go on living in this way any longer.
I'm so tired. I dread him coming into the room.
Why haven't you told him you're having a child?
I don't know. Oh, it's all right. There couldn't be any doubt of that. You see, I've never really wanted anyone else.
Listen, darling, you've got to tell him. Either he learns to behave like anyone else and looks after you,
Or
you must get out of this madhouse, this menagerie. He doesn't seem to know what love or anything else means.
you see that bear and that squirrel? Well, that's him, and that's me.
Meaning?
The game we play, bears and squirrels, squirrels and bears. Yes, it's quite mad, I know. Quite mad. That's him, and that's me.
I didn't realize he was a bit of a fae, as well as everything else.
Oh, there's nothing fey about Jimmy. It's just all we seem to have left, or had left. Even bears and squirrels seem to have gone their own ways now.
Since I arrived?
It started during those first months we had alone together, after Hugh went abroad. It was the one way of escaping from everything, a sort of unholy priest hole of being animals to one another. We could become little furry creatures with little furry brains, full of dumb, uncomplicated affection for each other, playful, careless creatures in their own cozy zoo for two. A silly symphony for people who couldn't bear the pain of being human beings any longer. And now, even they're dead. Poor silly, little silly animals. They were all love and no brains.
Listen to me. You have got to fight him. Fight or get out. Otherwise, he will kill you.
There you are, darling. Hello, Helena. Are you ready?
Yes, dear, it's all ready. Give Jimmy a call, will you?
Right. Hey, you horrible man! Stop that bloody noise and come out and get your tea. Going out?
Yes.
Pictures?
No. Church.
Oh, I see. Both of you?
Yes. Are you coming?
Well, I haven't read the papers properly yet. Tea. Let's have some tea, shall we? Hello, boyo. Come and have your tea. That blinking trumpet. Why don't you stuff it away somewhere?
You like it all right. Anyone who doesn't like jazz hasn't any feeling either for music or people.
Rubbish.
That seems to prove my point for you. Did you know that Webster played the banjo?
No, does he really?
He said he'd bring it along next time he came.
Oh, no.
Why is that nobody knows how to treat the papers in this place? Look at them. I haven't even glanced at them yet. Not the posh ones, anyway.
Oh, by the way, can I look at your...
No, you can't. No, you can't. You want anything, you pay for it like I have to. Price is...
Price 9p, obtainable from any bookstall. You're a mean old man, that's what you are.
What do you want to read it? What do you want to read it for anyway? You've no intellect or curiosity. It's all just washes over you. Am I right?
Right.
What are you, a Welsh trash?
Nothing, that's what I am.
Nothing, are you? Blimey, you ought to be Prime Minister. You must have been talking to some of my wife's friends. They're very intellectual set, aren't they? I've seen them. They all sit around feeling very spiritual with their mental hands on each other's knees, discussing sex as if it were the art of fugue. If you don't want to be an emotional old spinster, just you listen to your dad. You know your trouble, son? Too anxious to please.
Thank heaven somebody is.
You'll end up like one of those chocolate meringues my wife is so fond of. My wife, that's the one of the tom-toms behind me, sweet and sticky on the outside, and sink your teeth into it. Inside, all white, messy, and disgusting. Tea?
Thank you.
That's how you'll end up, my boy, black-hearted, evil-minded, and vicious.
Thank you.
And those old favorites, your friends and mine, sycophantic, phlegmatic, it's called, you can quit hanging around my counter, Mildred, because you'll find my position is closed. Good?
Oh, very good.
Thought you might like it. If I can slip in the religious angle, it should be a big hit. Don't you think so? I was thinking you might help me there. Of umpty bed blues. Just pass me the booze. I'm tired of being hetero. Rather ride on the metro. Just pass me the booze. This perpetual whoring gets quite dull and boring, so avoid the old python coil and pass me the celibate oil. You can quit, etc. No?
Very good, boy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I know what I meant to tell you. I wrote a poem while I was at the market yesterday. If you're interested, which you obviously are, it should appeal to you in particular. It's soaked in the theology of Dante, which is a good slosh of Eliot as well. It starts off, there are no dry cleaners in Cambodia.
What do you call it?
The cesspool, myself being a stone dropped in it, you see.
You should be dropped in it, all right.
Why do you try so hard to be unpleasant?
What's that?
Do you have to be so offensive?
You mean now? You think I'm being offensive? You underestimate me, doesn't she?
I think you're a very tiresome young man.
Oh dear, my wife's friends, past Lady Bracknell, the cucumber sandwiches, will you? Going out?
That's right.
On a Sunday evening in this town? Where on earth are you going?
I'm going out with HELENA.
Well, that's not a direction, that's an affliction. I didn't ask you What was the matter with you? I asked you where you were going.
He's going to church.
You're doing what? Have you gone out of your mind or something? You're determined to win her, aren't you? So it's come to this now. How feeble can you get? When I think of what I did, what I endured to get you out.
Oh, yes. We all know what you did for me. You rescued me from the wicked clutches of my family and all my friends. I'd still be rotting away at home if you hadn't ridden on your charger and carried me off.
The funny thing is, you know, I really did have to ride up on a white charger. Off-white, really. Mummy locked her up in their 8-bedroomed castle, didn't she? There is no limit to what the middle-aged mummy will do in the Holy Crusade against ruffians like me. Mummy and I took one quick look at each other, and from I knew that, to protect her innocent young, she wouldn't hesitate to cheat, lie, bully, and blackmail. Threatened with me, a young man without money, background, or even looks. She'd bellow like a rhinoceros in labor, enough to make every male rhino for miles turn white and pledge himself to celibacy. But even I underestimated her strength. Mummy may look overfed and a bit flabby on the outside, but don't let that well-bred guzzler fool you. Underneath all that, she's armor-plated. She's as rough as a knight in the Bombay brothel, as tough as a Matelat's arm. She's probably in that bloody cistern, taking down every word we say. Can you hear me, mother? Just about to get her in there. Let me give you an example of this lady's tactics. You may have noticed that I happen to wear my hair rather long. Now, if my wife is honest, or concerned enough to explain, she could tell you that this is not due to any dark, unnatural instincts I possess, but because, A, I can usually watch me to see if she can somehow get me into the news of the world. Also that I shan't carry off her daughter on that poor old charger of mine, all tricked out and caparisoned in discredited passions and ideals. The old gray mare that actually once led the charger against the old order, well, she certainly ain't what she used to be. It was all she could do to carry me, but your weight was too much for her. She just dropped dead on the way.
Don't let's brawl, boyo. It won't do any good.
Why don't we brawl? It's the only thing left I'm any good at.
Jimmy boy.
You've left this genuflecting sin jobber win you over, haven't you? She's got you back, hasn't she?
Oh, for heaven's sakes, don't be such a bully. You've no right to talk about her mother like that.
I've got every right. That old bitch should be dead. Well, aren't I right? I said she's an old bitch and she should be dead. What's the matter with you? Why don't you leap to her defense?
Jimmy, don't.
If someone said something like that about me, she'd react soon enough. She'd spring into her well-known lethargy and say nothing. I say she ought to be dead. My God, those worms will need a good dose of salt the day they get through her. Oh, what a bellyache they've got coming to you, my little wormy ones. Alison's mother is on the way. She will pass away, my friends, leaving a trail of worms gasping for laxative behind her from purgatives to purgatory. Is anything the matter?
I feel rather sick, that's all. Sick with contempt and loathing.
One day, when I'm no longer spending my days running a sweet stall, I may write a book about us all. It's all here, written in flames a mile high, and it won't be recollected in tranquility either. Picking daffodils with Auntie Wordsworth, I'll be recollected in fire and blood, my blood.
She simply said that she's going to church with me. I don't see why that calls for a outburst.
Don't you? Perhaps she's not as clever as I thought.
You think the world's treated you badly, don't you?
Oh, don't try and take his suffering away from him. He'd be lost without it.
I thought this play you're touring in is finished up on Saturday week.
That's right.
8 days ago, in fact.
Alison wanted me to stay.
What are you plotting?
Don't you think you've had enough of the heavy villain?
You don't believe in all that stuff. Why don't you believe in anything? You're just doing it to be vindictive, aren't you? Why are you letting her influence you like this?
Why? That's the words pulling my head off.
And as long as you're around, I'll go on using it. The last time she was in church was when she was married to me. I expect that surprises you, doesn't it? It was expediency, pure and simple. We were in a hurry, you see. Yes, we were actually in a hurry, lusting for the slaughter. Well, the local registrar was a particular pal of Daddy's, and we knew he'd pull the beans to the colonel like a shot. So we had to seek out some local vicar who didn't know him quite so well. But it was of no use. When my best man, a chap I'd met up in the pub that morning, and I turned up, Mummy and Daddy were in the church already. They found out at the last moment and had come to watch the execution carried out. How I remember looking down at them, full of beer for breakfast and feeling a bit buzzed. Mummy was slumped over her pew in a heap, the noble female rhino poleaxed last night, and Daddy sat beside her, upright and unafraid, dreaming of his days among the Indian princes and unable to believe he'd left his horsewhip at home. Just the two of them in that empty church, them and me. I'm not sure what happened after that. We must have been married, I suppose. I think I remember being sick in the vestry. Was I?
Haven't you finished?
Are you going to let yourself be taken in by this saint in Dior's clothing? I will tell you the simple truth about her. She's a cow. I wouldn't mind so much, but she seems to have become a sacred cow as well.
You've gone too far, Jimmy. Now dry up.
Oh, let him go on.
I suppose you're going to over that side as well. Well, why don't you? Helena will help to make it pay off for you. She's an expert in the new economics, the economics of the supernatural. It's all a simple matter of payments and penalties. She's one of those apocalyptic share pushers who are spreading all those rumors about a transfer of power. Reason and progress. The old firm is selling out. Everyone get out while the going is good. Those forgotten shares you had in the old traditions, the old beliefs are going up, 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 and up. There's going to be a changeover. A new board of directors will go to see that the dividends are always attractive and that they go to the right people. Sell out everything you've got, all those stocks in the old free inquiry. The big crash is coming and you can't escape it, so get on the ground floor with Helena and her friends while there's still time, and there isn't much to it left. Tell me, what could be more gilt-edged than the next world? It's a capital gain and it's all yours. You see, I know Helena and her kind so very well. In fact, her kind are everywhere. You can't move for them. There's a romantic lot. They spend their time mostly looking forward to the past, the only place they can see the light in the dark ages. She's moved long ago into a lovely little cottage on the Soul, cut right off from the ugly problems of the 20th century altogether. She prefers to be cut off from all the conveniences we fought to get for centuries. She'd rather go down to the ecstatic little shed at the bottom of the garden to relive her sense of guilt. Our Helena is full of ecstatic wind. Aren't you?
It's a pity you've been so far away all this time. I would probably have slapped your face. You've behaved like this ever since I first came.
Helena, have you ever watched somebody die? No, don't move away. It doesn't look dignified enough for you.
If you come any nearer, I will slap your face.
I hope you won't make the mistake of thinking for one moment that I'm a gentleman.
I'm not very likely to do that.
I've no public school scruples about hitting girls. If you slap my face, by God, I'll lay you out.
You probably would. You're the type.
You bet I'm the type. I'm the type that detests physical violence, which is why if I find some woman trying to cash in on what she thinks is my defenseless chivalry by lashing out with her frail little fists, I lash back at her.
Is that meant to be subtle or just plain Irish?
I think you and I understand one another all right, but you haven't answered my question. I said, have you watched somebody die?
No, I haven't.
Anyone who's never watched somebody die is suffering from a pretty bad case of virginity. For 12 months, I watched my father dying when I was 10 years old. He'd come back from the war in Spain, you see, and certain God-fearing gentlemen there had made such a mess of him, he didn't have long left to live. Everyone knew it. Even I knew it. But you see, I was the only one who cared. His family was embarrassed by the whole business. Embarrassed and irritated. As for my mother, all she could think about was the fact that she had allied herself to a man who seemed to be on the wrong side of things. My mother was all for being associated with minorities, provided they were the smart, fashionable ones. Well, we all of us waited for him to die. The family sent him a check every month and hoped he'd get on with it quietly without too much vulgar fuss. My mother looked after him without complaining, and that was about all. Perhaps she pitied him. I suppose she was capable of that, but I was the only one who cared. Every time I sat on the edge of his bed to listen to him talking or reading to me, I had to fight back my tears. And at the end of 12 months, I was a veteran. All that feverish failure of a man had to listen to Howard in that tiny bedroom. He would talk to me for hours, pouring out all that was left of his life to one lonely, bewildered little boy who could barely understand half of what he said. All he could feel was the despair and bitterness, the sweet, sickly smell of a dying man. You see, I learned at an early age what it was to be angry and helpless, and I can never forget it. I knew more about love, betrayal, and death when I was 10 years old than you will probably ever know in your life.
Time we went. I'll just get my things together.
Doesn't it matter to you what people do to me? What are you trying to do to me? I've given you everything. Doesn't it mean anything to you? You Judas, you phlegm. She's talked you with her, and you're so bloody feeble, you let her do it.
All I want is a little peace.
Peace. God, she wants peace. My heart is so full I feel ill, and she wants peace. I rage and shout my head off, and everyone thinks, poor chap, or what an objectionable young man. But that girl there can twist your arm off with her silence. I sat in this chair in the dark for hours, and although she knows I'm feeling as I feel now, she's turned over and gone to sleep. One of us is crazy. One of us is mean and stupid and crazy. Which is it? Is it me? Is it me standing here like an hysterical girl, hardly able to get my words out? Or is it her, sitting there putting on her shoes to go out with that? Which is it? I wish to heaven you'd try loving her, that's all. Perhaps one day you may want to come back. I shall wait for that day. I want to stand up in your tears and splash about in them and sing. I want to be there when you grow. I want to be there. I want to watch it. I want the front seat. I want to see your face rubbed in the mud. That's all I can hope for. There's nothing else I want any longer.
There's a phone call for you.
Well, it can't be anything good, can it?
Already?
Yes, I think so.
You feel all right, don't you? What's he been raving about now? Oh, what does it matter? He makes me want to claw his hair out by the roots. When I think of what you will be going through in a few months, and all for him, it's as if you'd done it wrong. These men, and all their time, you just sit there and do nothing.
That's right. I just sit here.
What's the matter with you? What sort of man are you?
I'm not the district commissioner, you know. Listen, Helena, I don't feel like Jimmy does about you, but I'm not exactly on your side either. And since you've been here, everything's certainly been worse than it's ever been. This has always been a battlefield, but I'm pretty certain that if I hadn't been here, everything would have been over between those two long ago. I've been a no man's land between them. Sometimes it's been still and peaceful, no incidents, and we've all been reasonably happy. But most of the time, it's simply a very narrow strip of plain hell. But where I come from, we're used to brawling and excitement. Perhaps I even enjoy being in the thick of it. I love those two people very much, and I pity all of us.
Are you including me in that? I don't understand him, or you, or any of it. All I know is that none of you seem to know how to behave in a decent, civilized way. Look, dear, he'll get it first thing in the morning. I thought it would be better than trying to explain the situation over the phone. I asked him to come up and fetch you home tomorrow.
What did you say?
Simply that you wanted to come home and would be would he come up for you?
I see.
I knew that you would be quite enough. I told him there was nothing to worry about, so they won't worry and think there's been an accident or anything. I had to do something, dear. You didn't mind, did you?
No, I don't mind. Thank you.
You will go when he comes for you.
Yes, I'll go.
I expect he'll drive up. He should be here about tea time. It'll give you plenty of time to get your things together. And perhaps after you've gone, Jimmy will come to his senses and face up to things.
Who was on the phone?
Well, I didn't catch it properly. It rang after I'd sent the write-off, just as soon as I put the receiver down almost. I had to go back down the stairs again. Sister somebody, I think.
Must have been a hospital or something, unless he knows someone in a convent. That doesn't seem very likely, does it? Well, we'll be late if we don't hurry.
All right, Boyle?
It's you's mum. She's had a stroke.
I'm sorry.
How bad is it?
They didn't say much, but I think she's dying.
Oh dear.
It doesn't make any sense at all. Do you think it does?
I'm sorry, I really am.
Anything I can do?
The London train goes in half an hour. You'd better order me a taxi.
Right. Do you want me to come with you, boy?
No thanks. After all, you hardly knew her. It's not for you to go. She may not even remember me for all I know.
Okay.
I remember the first time I showed her the photograph, just after we were married. She looked at it and the tears just welled up in her eyes and she said, "But she's so beautiful. She's so beautiful." She kept repeating it as if she couldn't believe it. Sounds a bit simple and sentimental when you repeat it, but it was pure gold the way she said it. She got a kick out of you like she did out of everything else. Hand me my shoes, will you? You're coming with me, aren't you? She hasn't got anyone else now. I need you to come with me.
He looks into her eyes, but she turns away and stands up. Outside, the church bells are ringing. Helena moves up to the door and waits, watching them closely. Alison stands quite still, Jimmy's eyes burning into her. Then she crosses in front of him, the table, but she picks up a prayer book, her back to him. She wavers and seems about to say something, but then turns up stage instead and walks quickly to the door.
Let's go.
She goes out, Helena following. Jimmy gets up, looks about him unbelievingly, and leans against the chest of drawers. The teddy bear is close to his face. He picks up gently, looks at it quickly, and throws it downstage. It hits the floor with a thud and makes a rattling, groaning sound. As guaranteed in the advertisement, Jimmy falls forward onto the bed, his face buried in the covers. End of Scene 1, Act 2. Act 2, Scene 2. The following evening, when the curtain rises, Alison is discovered going from her dressing table to the bed and packing her things into a suitcase. Sitting down left is her father, Colonel REDFERN, a large, handsome man about 60. 40 years of being a soldier sometimes conceals the essential, gentle, kindly man underneath. Brought up to command respect, he is often slightly withdrawn and uneasy now that he finds himself in a world where his authority has lately become less and less unquestionable. His wife would relish in the present situation, but he is only disturbed and bewildered by it. He looks around him discreetly, scrutinizing everything.
I'm afraid it's all beyond me. I suppose it always will be. As for Jimmy, he just speaks a different language from any of us. Where'd you say he'd gone?
He's gone to see Mrs. Tanner.
Who?
Hugh Tanner's mother.
Oh, see.
She's been taken ill. A stroke. Hugh's abroad, as you know, so Jimmy's gone to London to see her. He wanted me to go with him.
Didn't she start him off in this sweet stall business?
Yes,
What is she like? Nothing like her son, I trust.
not remotely. Oh, how can you describe her? Rather ordinary. What Jimmy insists on calling working class. A charwoman who married an actor, worked hard all her life, and spent most of it struggling to support her husband and her son. Jimmy said Jimmy and she are very fond of each other.
So you didn't go with him?
Nope.
Who's looking after the sweet stall?
Cliff. He should be in soon.
Oh, yes, of course, Cliff. Does he live here too?
Yes, his room is just across the landing.
Sweet stall. It does seem an extraordinary thing for an educated young man to be occupying himself with. Why should he want to do that, of all things? I've always thought he must be quite clever in a way.
Oh, he tried many things. Journalism, advertising, even vacuum cleaners for a few weeks. He seems to have been as happy doing this as anything else.
I've often wondered what it was like when you were living. Where you were living, You didn't tell us very much in your letters.
There wasn't a great deal to tell. There's not much social life here.
Oh, I see what you mean. You were afraid of being disloyal to your husband.
Disloyal? He thought it was some high treason of to write to you at all. I used to have to dodge downstairs for the post so that he wouldn't see I was getting letters from home. Even then, I had to hide them.
He really does hate us, doesn't he?
Oh, yes. Don't have any doubts about that. He hates all of us.
Seems a great pity. It was all so unfortunate. Unfortunate and unnecessary. I'm afraid I can't help feeling that he must have had a certain amount of right on his side.
Right on his side?
It's a little late to admit it, I know. But your mother and I weren't entirely free from blame. I've never said anything. There was no point afterwards. But I've always believed that she went too far over Jimmy. Of course, she was extremely upset at the time. We both were. And that explains a good deal of what happened. I did my best to stop her, but she was in such a state of mind there was simply nothing I could do. She seemed to have made up her mind that if he was going to marry you, he must be a criminal. At the very least, all those inquiries, the private detectives, the accusations, I hated every moment of it.
I suppose she was trying to protect me in a rather heavy-handed way, admittedly.
I must confess that I find that kind of thing rather horrifying. Anyway, I try to think now that it never happened. I didn't approve of Jimmy at all, and I don't ever suppose I ever should. But looking back on it, I think it would have been better for all concerned if we had never attempted to interfere. At least it would have been a little more dignified.
It wasn't your fault.
I don't know. We were all to blame in our different ways. No doubt Jimmy's acting in good faith. He's honest enough wherever else he may be. And your mother, in a heavy-handed way, as you put it, acted in good faith as well. Perhaps you and I were the ones most to blame.
You and I.
I think you may take it from me a little, because, my dear, you like to sit on the fence because it's comfortable and more peaceful.
Oh, sitting on the fence. I married him, didn't I?
Oh, yes, you did.
In spite of all the humiliating scenes and the threats. What did you say to me at the time? Wasn't I letting you down, turning against you? How could I do this to you, etc.?
Perhaps it might have been better if you hadn't written letters to us, knowing how we felt about your husband, and after everything that had happened. Forgive me, I'm a little confused with everything, the telegram driving up here suddenly.
Do you know what he said about Mummy? He said she was an overfed, overprivileged old bitch. A good blowout for the worms was his expression, I think.
I see. And what does he say about me?
Oh, he doesn't seem to mind you so much. In fact, I think he rather likes you. He liked you because he can feel sorry for you. Poor Daddy, poor old Daddy. Just one of those sturdy old plants left over from the Edwardian wilderness that can't understand why the sun isn't shining anymore. Something like that anyway.
He has quite a turn of phrase, hasn't he? Why'd you ever have to meet this young man?
Oh, Daddy, please don't put me on trial now. I've been on trial every day and night of my life for nearly 4 years.
Well, why should he have married you, feeling as he did about everything?
That is the famous American question. You know, the $64,000 one? Perhaps it was revenge. Oh, yes. Some people do actually marry for revenge. People like Jimmy, anyway. Perhaps he should have been another Shelley and can't understand now why I'm not another Mary and you're not William Godwin. He thinks he's got a sort of genius for love and friendship on his own terms. Well, for 20 years, I'd lived a happy, uncomplicated life, and suddenly this spiritual barbarian throws down the gauntlet at me. Perhaps only another woman could understand what a challenge like that means, although I think Helena was as mystified as you are.
I am mystified. Your husband has obviously taught you a great deal, whether you realize it or not. What any of it means, I don't know. I've always believed that people marry with each other because they were in love. That always seemed a good reason enough to me. Apparently, that's too simple for the young people nowadays. I have to talk about challenges and revenge. I just can't believe that love between men and women is really like that.
Only some men and women.
Oh, why you? My daughter. No. Perhaps Jimmy is right. Perhaps I am. Was it? No plant left over from the Edwardian wilderness. And I can't understand why the sun isn't shining anymore. You can see what he means, can't you? It was March 1914 when I left England, and apart from leaves every 10 years or so, I didn't see much of my own country until we all came back in 47. Oh, I knew things had changed, of course. People told you all the time the way it was going to the dogs, as the blimps are supposed to say. But it seemed very unreal to me out there. The England I remember was the one I left in 1914. I was happy to go on remembering it this way, that way. Besides, I had the Maharaja's army to command. That was my world, and I loved it, all of it. At that time, it looked like going on forever. When I think of it now, it seems like a dream. If only I could have gone on forever. Those long, cool evenings up in the hills, everything purple and golden. Your mother and I were so happy that it seemed as though we had everything we could ever want. I think the last day of the sun shone was when that dirty little train steamed out of that crowded, suffocating Indian station, and the battalion band playing for all it was worth. I knew in my heart it was over then, everything.
You're hurt because everything has changed. Jimmy is hurt because everything is the same, and neither of you can face it. Something's gone wrong somewhere, hasn't it?
It looks like it, my dear. This is a big step you're taking. You've made up your mind to come back with me? Is that really what you want?
I'm sorry. I came in to see if I could help you pack, Alison. Oh, you look as though you finished.
All ready.
Have you got everything?
Well, no, but Cliff can send the rest on sometime, I expect. He should have been back by now. Oh, of course, he's had to put the stall away on his own today.
Well, I better put this in the car then. We may as well get along. Your mother will be worried. I know. I promised her I'd bring her when I got here. She's not very well.
I hope my telegram didn't upset her too much. Perhaps I shouldn't have...
Not at all. We were very grateful that you did. It was very kind of you indeed. She tried to insist on coming with me, but I finally managed to talk her out of it. I thought it would be best for everyone. What about your case, Helena? If you care to tell me where it is, I'll take it down with this one.
I'm afraid I shan't be coming tonight.
Aren't you coming with us?
I'd like to, but the fact is, I have an appointment tomorrow in Birmingham about a job. They've just sent me a script. It's rather important, and I don't want to miss it. So it looks as though I shall have to stay here tonight.
Oh, I see. Hello, Cliff.
Hello there.
Daddy, this is Cliff.
How do you do, Cliff?
How do you do, sir?
Well, I better put this in the car, hadn't I? Don't be long, Alison. Goodbye, Helen. I expect we shall be seeing you again soon if you're not busy.
Oh, yes. I shall be back in a day or two.
Well then, goodbye, Cliff.
Goodbye, sir. You're really going then?
Really going.
I should think Jimmy would be back pretty soon. You won't wait?
No, Cliff.
Who's going to tell him?
I can tell him. That is, if I'm here when he comes back.
You'll be here. Don't you ought to tell him yourself? Bit conventional, isn't it? I hope you're right, that's all.
What do you mean? You hope I'm right.
The place is going to be really cockeyed now. You know that, don't you?
Please, Cliff. I'll write to you later.
Goodbye, lovely.
Look after him.
We'll keep the old nut house going somehow.
See you soon. Would you like me to make you some tea?
No, thanks.
I think I might have some myself, if you don't mind.
So you're staying?
Just for tonight. Do you object?
Nothing to do with me. Of course, he may not come back until later on.
What do you think he'll do? Perhaps he'll look up one of his own girlfriends. What about this Madeline?
What about her?
Isn't she supposed to have done a lot for him? And couldn't he go back to her?
I shouldn't think so.
What happened?
She was nearly old enough to be his mother. I expect that's something to do with it. Why the hell should I know?
You're his friend, aren't you? Anyway, he's not what you'd call reticent about himself, is he? I mean, I've never seen so many souls stripped to the waist since I've been here. Well, aren't you staying?
No, I'm not. There was a train in from London about 5 minutes ago, and just in case he may have been on it, I'm going out.
Don't you think you ought to be here when he comes back?
I've had a hard day, and I don't think I want to see anyone hurt until I've had something to eat first, and a few drinks as well. I think I might pick up some nice, pleasant little tart in a milk bar and sneak her past old Mother Drury. Here, he's all yours, and I hope he rams it up your nostrils.
She crosses to the table and stubs her cigarette out. The front door downstairs is heard to slam. She moves to the wardrobe, opens it idly. It's empty except for one dress, swinging on a hanger. She goes to the dressing table, now cleared but for a framed photograph of Jimmy. Idly, she slams the empty drawers open and shut. She turns upstage to the chest of drawers, picks up a toy bear, and sits on the bed looking at it. She lays her head back on the pillow, still holding the bear. She looks up quickly as the door crashes open and Jimmy enters. He stands looking at her, then moves down, centers, taking off his raincoat and throwing it over the table. He is almost giddy with anger and has to steady himself on the chair. He looks up.
That old bastard Nellie ran me down in his car. Now, if he killed me, that really would have been ironical. And how right and fitting that my wife should have been a passenger. Passenger? What's the matter with everybody? Cliff practically walked into me coming out of the house. He belted up the other way and pretended not to see me. Are you the only one who's not afraid to stay? Oh, it's one of these, is it? Did you write this for her? Look, listen to this then. My dear, I must get away. I don't suppose you will understand, but please try. I need peace so desperately, and at the moment, I'm willing to sacrifice everything just for that. I don't know what's going to happen to us. I know you will be feeling wretched and bitter, but try to be a little patient with me. I shall always have a deep, loving need of you. Alison. Oh, how could she be so bloody wet? Deep, loving need. That makes me puke. She couldn't say, you rotten bastard. I hate your guts. I'm clearing out, and I hope you rot. No, she has to make a polite, emotional mess of it. Deep, loving need. I never thought she was capable of being as phony as that. What is that? A line from one of those plays you've been in? What are you doing here anyway? You better keep out of my way if you don't want your head kicked in.
If you'll stop thinking about yourself for one moment, I'll tell you something I think you ought to know. Your wife is going to have a baby. Well, doesn't that mean anything? Even to you?
All right. Yes, I am surprised I give you that. But tell me, did you honestly expect me to go soggy at the knees and collapse with remorse? Listen, if you'll stop breathing your female wisdom all over me, I'll tell you something. I don't care. I don't care if she's going to have a baby. I don't care if it has 2 heads. Do I disgust you? Well, go on, slap my face. But remember what I told you before, will you? For 11 hours, I have been watching someone I love much going through the sordid process of dying. She was alone, and I was the only one with her. And when I have to walk behind that coffin on Thursday, I'll be on my own again, because that bitch won't even send a bunch of flowers. I know. She made a great mistake of all her kind. She thought that because Hugh's mother was a deprived, and thought because she was an ignorant old woman who said all the wrong things to all the wrong places, she couldn't be taken seriously. You think I should be overcome with all because that cruel, stupid girl is going to have a baby? I can't believe it. I can't. Well, the performance is over. Now leave me alone and get out, you evil-minded little virgin.
She slaps his face savagely. An expression of horror, disbelief floods his face, but it drains away, and all that is left is pain. His hand goes up to his head, and a muffled cry of despair escapes him. Helena tears his hand away and kisses him passionately, drawing him down beside her.
My God.
Ends of Act 2. Act 3, Scene 1. Several months later, a Sunday evening, Alison's personal belongings, such as her makeup things on the dressing table, for example, have been replaced by Helena's. At Rise's curtain, we find Jimmy and Cliff sprawled in their respective armchairs, immersed in the Sunday newspapers. Helena is standing down left, leaning on the ironing board, a small pile of clothes beside her. She looks more attractive than before, for the setting of her face is more relaxed. She still looks quite smart, but in an unpremeditated, careless way. She wears an old shirt of Jimmy's.
That stinking old pipe.
Shut up.
Why don't you do something with it?
Why do I spend half of Sunday reading the papers?
It stinks.
So do you, but I'm not singing an aria about it. The dirty ones get more and more wet round the mouth, and the posh ones are more pompous than ever. Does this bother you?
No, I quite like it.
There you are. She likes it. Have you read about the grotesque and evil practices going on in the Midlands?
Read about the what?
Grotesque and evil practices going on in the Midlands.
No. What about them?
Seems we don't know the old place. It's all in here. Startling revelations this week. Pictures, too. Reconstructions of midnight invocations at the Coptic goddess of fertility.
Sounds madly depraved.
Yes, it's rather us, isn't it? My gosh, look at them, snarling themselves silly. Next week, a well-known debutante relates how during her evil orgy in Market Harborough, she killed and drank the blood of a white cockerel. Well, I'll bet Fortnum's must be doing a roaring line in sacrificial cocks. Perhaps that's what Miss Drury does on Sunday evenings. She puts in a stint as evil high princess down at the YW, probably having a workout at this very moment. You never dabbled in this kind of thing, did you?
Not lately.
Sounds rather your cup of tea, a cup of blood, I should say. Well, I mean, it gives you something to do, doesn't it? After all, it wouldn't be as if we was all alike, would it? It'd be a funny world if we were all the same, and that's what I always say. All I know is that somebody's been sticking pins into my wax image for years. Of course, Alison's mother. Every Friday, the wax arrives from Harrods, and through the weekend, she's stabbing away at it with a hat pin. Ruined her bridge game, I dare say.
Why don't you try it?
Yes, it's an idea. Just for a start, we could roast him over the gas stove. Have we got enough shillings for the meter? It seems to be just the thing for these autumn evenings. After all, the whole point of a sacrifice is that you give up something you never really wanted in the first place. You know what I mean? People are doing it around all the time. They give up their careers, say, on their beliefs or sex. And everyone thinks to themselves, how wonderful to be able to do that. Only if I were capable of doing that. But the truth of it is that they've been kidding themselves and they've been kidding you. It's not awfully difficult giving up something you were incapable of ever really wanting. We shouldn't be wanting them. We should feel rather sorry for them. You'll make an admirable sacrifice.
Right up. I'm trying to read.
Afterwards, we can make a loving cup from his blood. Can't say I fancy that so much. I've seen it. It looks like coconut, ever so common. Yours would be much better. pale Cambridge blue, I imagine. No? And afterwards, we can make indications to the Coptic goddess of fertility. Got any ideas how you do that? Do you know?
Shouldn't have thought you needed to vocations to the Coptic, whatever she is.
Yes, I see what you mean. Well, we don't want to ask trouble, do we? Perhaps we might appeal to the lady here. She's written a long letter all about artificial insemination. It's headed, "Haven't we tried God's patience enough?" Let's see the other posh one.
Haven't finished yet.
Well, hurry up. I have to write and ask them to put hyphens in between the syllables for you. There's a particularly savage correspondence going on there about whether Milton wore braces or not. I just want to see who gets shot down this week.
Just read that. Don't know what it was about, but a fellow of All Souls seemed to have bitten the dust, and the Athenaeum's going up in flames, so the editor declares that this correspondence is now closed.
I think you're actually acquiring yourself a curiosity, my boy. Oh, yes. And then there's that American professor from Yale or somewhere who believes that when Shakespeare was writing The Tempest, he changed his sex. Yes, he was obliged to go back to Stratford because the other actors couldn't take him seriously any longer. This professor chap is coming over here to search for certain documents which will prove that poor old W.S. ended up in someone else's second best bed. A certain Warwickshire farmers whom he married after having 3 children by him. Is anything the matter?
No, nothing. I'm only beginning to get used to him. I mean, I never used to be sure when he was being serious or when he wasn't.
Don't think he knows himself half the time. When in doubt, just mark it down as an insult.
Hurry up with that paper and shut up. What are we going to do tonight? There isn't even a decent concert on. Are you going to church?
No, I don't think so. Unless you want to.
Do I detect a growing satanic glint in her eyes lately? Do you think it's living in sin with me that does it? Do you feel very sinful, my dear? Well, do you? Do you feel sin crawling out of your ears like stored up wax or something? Are you wondering whether I'm joking or not? Perhaps I ought to wear a red nose and a hat. I'm just curious, that's all. Now, let's have that paper, stupid.
Why don't you drop dead?
Will you be much longer doing that?
Nearly finished.
Talking of sin, wasn't that Miss Drury's reverend friend I saw you chatting with yesterday, Helena, darling? I said, wasn't that?
Yes, it was.
My dear, you don't have to be on the defensive, you know.
I'm not on the defensive.
After all, there's no reason why we shouldn't have the parson for tea up here. Why don't we? Did you find that you had much in common?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think that some of this spiritual beefcake would make a man of me? Should I go in for this moral weightlifting and get myself some overdeveloped muscle? I was a liberal skinny weakling. I too was afraid to strip down to my soul, but now everyone looks at my superb physique in envy. I can perform any kind of press there is without betraying the least sign of passion or kindliness.
Right, Jimmy.
2 years ago, I wouldn't even lift up my head, and now I have more uplift than a film starlet.
Jimmy, can we have one day, just one day, without tumbling over religion or politics?
Yes, change the record, old boy.
Thought
Or pipe down.
Yeah, thought of a title for a new song today. It's called My Mother in the Madhouse. That's Why I'm in Love with You. The lyrics are catchy too. I was thinking we might work it into an act.
Good idea.
I was thinking we'd scrub Jock and Day and call ourselves something else. And Jock and Day sounds tiptoed on the misty mountain tops. It's too intellectual. Anyway, I shouldn't think people will want to be reminded of that peculiar man's place after Harvard and Yale have finished with him. How about something bright and snappy? I know. What about T.S. Eliot and Pan?
Mirth, melody, and madness.
Bringing quips and strips for you. For we may be guilty, darling, but we're both insane as well. Ladies and gentlemen, as I was coming to the theater tonight, I was passing through the stage door, and a man comes up to me and he says,
Have you seen nobody?
have I seen who?
Have you seen nobody?
Of course I haven't seen nobody. Kindly don't waste my time. Ladies and gentlemen, a little recitation entitled, She Said She Was Called a Little Gidding, but she was more like a gelding iron. Thank you. She said she was called Little Gidding.
Are you quite sure you haven't seen nobody?
Are you still here?
I'm looking for nobody.
Will you kindly go away? She said she was called Little Gidding.
Well, I can't find nobody anywhere, and I'm supposed to give him this case.
Will you kindly stop interrupting, please? Can't you see I'm trying to entertain these ladies and gentlemen? Who is this nobody you're talking about?
I was told to come here and give this case to nobody.
You were told to come here and give this case to nobody.
That's right. And when I give it to him, nobody would give me a shilling.
And when you gave it to him, nobody would give you a shilling.
That's right.
Well, what about it?
Nobody's not here.
Now, let me get this straight. When you say nobody's here, you don't mean nobody here.
No.
No, you mean nobody's here.
That's right.
Well, then why didn't you say so before?
Hey, are you down there?
Oh, it goes on for hours yet, but never mind. What is it, sir?
I think your sketch stinks. I think your sketch stinks.
He thinks it stinks, and who, pray, might you be?
Me? Oh, I'm nobody.
Then here's your bloody case.
My ironing board. Now there's a certain lady, and you all know who I mean. She may have been to Rodion, but to me she's still a queen. Someday I'm going to marry her when times are not so bad. Her mother doesn't care for me, so I'll have her to ask her dad. We'll build a little home for two and have some quiet menage. We'll send our kids to public school and build on bread and marge. Don't be afraid to sleep with your sweetheart just because she's better than you. Those forgotten middle classes may have fallen on their noses, but a girl who's true blue will still have something left for you. The angels up above will know when you're in love, so don't be afraid to sleep with your sweetheart just because she's better than you. Or they call me Sydney, just because she's better than you.
Your damned great feet. That's the second time you've kicked my ankle. It's no good, Helena. We'll have to do it. Go on and go and make some tea, and we'll decide what we're going to do.
Make some yourself.
You rough bastard.
I want to read the papers.
You're a savage, a hooligan. You really are. Do you know that? You don't deserve to live in the same house with decent, sensitive people.
Are you going to dry up, or do I read the papers down here?
You've made me wrench me guts.
Look what you're doing. You're ripping my shirt. Get off.
Well, what do you want to wear a shirt for? A tough character like you. Now go and make some tea.
It's the only clean one I've got. Oh, you big oaf. Look, it's filthy.
Yes, it is. He's stronger than he looks. If you like to take it off now, I'll wash it through for you. It'll be dry by the time we want to go out. What's the matter, Cliff?
Oh, it'll be all right.
Give it to her and quit moaning.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Helena.
Right. I won't be a minute with it.
You look like Marlon Brando or something. You don't care for Helena, do you?
You didn't seem very keen yourself once. It's not the same, is it?
No, of course it's not the same, you idiot. It never is. Today's meal is always different from yesterday's, and the last woman isn't the same as the one before. If you can't accept that, you're going to be pretty unhappy, my boy.
Jimmy, I don't think I shall stay here much longer.
Oh, why not?
Oh, I don't know. I've just thought of trying somewhere different. The sweet stall's all right, but I'd like to try something else. You're highly educated and it suits you. I need something a bit better.
Just as you like, my dear boy. It's your business, not mine.
And another thing, I think Helena finds it rather a lot of work to do with two chaps about the place. It won't be so much for her if there's just the two of you. Anyway, I think I ought to find some girl who just look after me.
Sounds like a good idea. Can't think who'd be stupid enough to team up themselves with you, though. Perhaps Helena can think of somebody for you. One of her posh girlfriends with lots of money and no brains. That's what you want.
Something like that.
Any idea of what you're going to do?
Not much.
That sounds like you all right. Shouldn't think you'll last 5 minutes without me to explain the score to you.
Don't suppose so.
You're such a scruffy little beast. I'll bet some respectable little madam from Pinner or Guildford gobbles you up in 6 months. She'll marry you, send you out to work, and you'll end up as clean as a new pin.
Yes, I'm stupid enough for that too.
I seem to spend my life saying goodbye.
My feet hurt.
Or try washing your socks. It's a funny thing. You've been loyal, generous, and a good friend. But I'm quite prepared to see you wander off, find a new home, make out on your own, and all because of something I want from that girl downstairs. Something I know in my heart she's capable of giving. You're worth a half a dozen Helenas to me, or to anyone. And if you were in my place, you'd do the same thing. Right?
Right.
Why do we let these women bleed us to death? Have you ever had a letter and on it is franked, please give your blood generously? Well, the Postmaster General does that on behalf of all the women in the world. I suppose people in our generation aren't able to die for good causes any longer. We had all that done for us in the 30s and 40s when we were still kids. There aren't any good, brave causes left. If the Big Bang does come and we'll all get killed off, it won't be, it won't be in the aid of the old-fashioned grand design. It'll just be for the brave new nothing very much thank you. About as pointless and inglorious as stepping in front of a bus. Now there's nothing left for it, my boy, but to let yourself be butchered by a woman.
Here you are, Cliff.
Oh, thanks, Helena, very much. That's decent of you.
Nothing at all. I should dry it over the gas. The fire in your room would be better, but there won't be much room for it over that stove.
Right. I will.
And hurry up about it, stupid. We'll all go out and we'll have a drink soon, okay?
Okay.
But make me some tea first, you madcap little Charlie. Darling, I'm sick of seeing you behind that damned ironing board.
I'm sorry.
Get yourself glammed up and we'll hit the town. See you put a shroud over Mummy. I think you should have a Union Jack over it.
Is anything wrong?
Oh, don't frown like that. You look like your presiding magistrate.
Well, how should I look?
As if your heart stuttered a little when you looked at me.
Oh, it does that, all right.
Cliff tells me he's leaving us.
I know. He told me last night.
Did he? I always seem to be the end of the queue when they're passing informations out.
I'm sorry he's gone.
Yes, so am I. He's a sloppy, irritating bastard, but he's got a big heart. You can forgive somebody almost anything for that. He's had to learn how to take it and He knows how to hand it out. Come here. Right from the first night, you have always put out your hand to me first, as if you expected nothing, or worse than nothing, you didn't care. You made a good enemy, didn't you? What they call a worthy opponent. But then, when people put down their weapon, it doesn't mean they necessarily stop fighting.
I love you.
I think perhaps you do. I think perhaps you do. Perhaps it means something to lie with your victorious general in your arms, especially when he's heartily sick of the whole campaign, tired out, hungry and dry. You stood up and came out to meet me. Oh, Helena, don't let anything go wrong.
Oh, my darling.
Either you're with me or against me.
I've always wanted you. Always.
T.S. Eliot and Pam will make a good double. If you'll help me, I'll close that damn sweet store and we'll start everything from scratch. What do you say? We'll get away from this place.
I say that's wonderful.
Mwah. Put away all that junk away and we'll get out. We'll get plenty, joyfully, tiddly, we'll gaze at each other tenderly and lecherously in the builder's arms. And then we'll come back here and I'll make such love to you, you'll not care about anything else at all.
I'll change out of your old shirt.
Right. I'll hurry up the little man. I shall hurry up that little man.
Hello?
A friend of yours to see you.
End of scene 1, Act 3.
Act 3, Scene 2.
It is a few minutes later. Go ahead.
It's a few minutes later. From Cliff's room across the landing comes the sound of Jimmy's jazz trumpet. At rise of the curtain, Helena is standing left of the table, pouring out a cup of tea. Alison is sitting on the armchair right. She bends down and picks up Jimmy's pipe. Then she scoops up a little pile of ash from the floor and drops it in the ashtray on the arm of the chair.
He still smokes this foul old stuff? I used to hate it at first, but you get used to it.
Yes.
I went to the pictures last week and some old man was smoking in front. A few rows away. I actually got up and sat right behind him.
Here, have this. It usually seems to help.
Thanks.
Are you sure you're feeling all right now?
It was just, everything. It's my own fault entirely. I must be mad coming here like this. I'm sorry, Helena.
Why should you be sorry? You, of all people.
Because it was unfair and cruel of me to come back. I'm afraid a sense of timing is one of the things I seem to have learned from Jimmy. But it's something that can be done in very bad taste. So many times, I've just managed to stop myself coming here right at the last moment. Even today, when I went to the booking office at St. Pancras, it was like a charade. And I never believed that I'd let myself walk onto that train. And when I was on it, I got into a panic. I felt like a criminal. I told myself I'd turn around at the other end and come right straight back. I couldn't even believe that this place existed anymore. But once I got here, there was nothing I could do. I had to convince myself that everything I remember about this place had really happened to me once. How many times in these past few months I've thought of the evenings we used to spend here in this room, suspended and rather remote. You make a good cup of tea.
Something Jimmy taught me.
Oh, why am I here? You must all wish me 1,000 miles away.
You don't wish anything of that kind. You've more right to be here than I.
Oh, Helena, don't bring out the book of rules.
You are his wife, aren't you? Whatever I have done, I've never been able to forget the fact you have all the rights.
Helena, even I gave up believing in the divine rights of marriage long ago, even before I met Jimmy. They've got something different now. Constitutional monarchy. You are where you are by consent. And if you start trying any strong-arm stuff, you're out. And I'm out.
Is that something you learned from him?
Don't make me feel like a blackmailer or something. Please. I've done something foolish and rather vulgar in coming here tonight. I regret it, and I detest myself for doing it. But I did not come here in order to gain anything, whatever it was. Hysteria or just macabre curiosity. I had certainly no intention of making any kind of breach between you and Jimmy. You must believe that.
Oh, I believe it all right. That's why everything seems wrong and terrible than ever. You didn't even reproach me. You should have been outraged, but you weren't. I feel so ashamed.
You talk as though he swindled something You talk as though he were something you'd swindled out of me.
And you talk as if you were a book or something you passed around to anyone who happens to want it for 5 minutes. What's the matter with you? You sound as though you were quoting him all the time. I thought you told me once you couldn't bring yourself to believe in him.
I don't think I ever believed in your way either.
Well, at least I still believe in right and wrong. Not even the months in this madhouse have stopped me doing that. Even though everything I've done is wrong, at least I know it was wrong.
You loved him, didn't you? That's what you wrote and told me.
And it was true.
It was pretty difficult to believe at the time. I could not understand it.
I could hardly believe it myself.
Afterwards, it wasn't quite so difficult. You used to say some pretty harsh things about him. Not that I was sorry to hear them. They were rather comforting then. But you even shocked me sometimes.
I suppose I was a little over emphatic. I mean, there doesn't seem much point in trying to explain everything, does it?
Not really.
Do you know, I have discovered what is wrong with Jimmy. I mean, it's very simple, really. He was born out of his time.
Yes, I know.
There's no place for people like that any longer, in sex or politics or anything. That's why he's so futile. I mean, sometimes I listen to him. I think he thinks he's still in the middle of the French Revolution, and that's where he ought to be. I mean, of course, he doesn't know where he is or where he's going. He'll never do anything, and he'll never amount to anything.
I suppose he's what you'd call an eminent Victorian, slightly comic in a way. We seem to have had this conversation before.
Yes. I remember everything you said about him. It horrified me. I couldn't believe that you could have married someone like that. Alison, it's all over between Jimmy and me. I can see it now. I've got to get out. No, listen to me. When I saw you standing there tonight, I knew that it was utterly wrong. That I didn't believe in any of this. And not Jimmy or anyone could make me believe otherwise. How could I have ever thought I could get away with it? He wants one world and I want another, and lying in that bed won't change it. I believe in good and evil, and I don't have to apologize for that. It's quite a modern, scientific belief now. So they tell me, and by everything I have ever believed in or wanted, what I have been doing is wrong and evil.
Helena, you're not going to leave him.
Yes, I am. Oh, I'm not stepping aside to let you come back. You can do what you like. Frankly, I think you'd be a fool, but that's your own business. I think I've given you enough advice.
But he'll have no one.
Oh, my dear, he'll find somebody. He's probably hold court here, like one of the Renaissance popes. Oh, I know I'm throwing the book of rules at you, but you call it. But believe me, you're never going to be happy without it. I tried throwing it away all these months, but I know now it doesn't work. When you came in at the door, ill and tired and hurt, it was all over for me. You see, I didn't know about the baby. It was such a shock. It's like a judgment on all of us.
You saw me, and I had to tell you what happened. I lost the child. It's a simple fact. There is no judgment. There's no blame.
Maybe not, but I feel it just the same.
But don't you see, it isn't logical.
No, it isn't. But I know it's right.
You mustn't leave him. He needs you. I know he needs you.
Do you think so?
Maybe you're not the right one for him. We're neither of us right.
Oh, why doesn't he stop that damn noise?
He wants something quite different from us. What it is exactly, I don't know. A kind of cross between a mother and a Greek courtesan, a henchwoman, a mixture of Cleopatra and Boswell. But give him a little longer.
Please, will you stop that? I can't think. Jimmy, for God's sakes. Jimmy, I want to speak to you.
Is your friend still with you?
Oh, don't be an idiot and come in here.
He doesn't want to see me.
Stay where you are and don't be silly. I'm sorry, it won't be very pleasant, but I've made up my mind to go and I've got to tell him now.
Is this another of your dark plots? Hadn't she better sit down? She looks a bit ghastly.
I'm so sorry, dear. Would you like some more tea or an aspirin or something? It's not very surprising, is it? She's been ill, very ill. She's...
You don't have to draw a diagram for me. I can see what's happened to her.
And doesn't it mean anything to you?
I don't exactly relish the idea of anyone being ill or in pain. It was my child too, you know, but it's my first loss.
It was mine.
What are you looking so solemn about? What's she doing here?
I'm sorry.
Don't, please. Can't you see the condition she's in? She's done nothing. She's said nothing. None of it's her fault.
What isn't her fault?
Jimmy, I don't want to brawl. So please.
Let's hear it, shall we?
Very well. I'm going downstairs to pack my things. If I hurry, I shall catch the 7:15 to London. This is not Alison's doing. You must understand that. It's my own decision entirely. In fact, she's just been trying to talk me out of it. It's just that suddenly tonight, I see what I have really known all along. That you can't be happy when what you're doing is wrong or is hurting someone. I suppose it could never have worked anyway. But I do love you, Jimmy. I shall never love anyone as I loved you. But I can't go on. I can't take part in all the suffering. I can't. You probably won't feel up to making that journey again tonight, but we can fix up you in a hotel before I go. There's about half an hour. I can just make it.
They all want to escape from the pain of being alive. And most of all, from love. I always knew something like this would turn up some problem, like an ill wife, and it would be too much for those delicate, hothouse feelings of yours. It's no good trying to fool yourself about love. You can't fall into it like a soft job without dirtying up your hands. It takes muscles and guts. And if you can't bear the thought of messing up your nice, clean soul, you'd better give up the whole idea of life and become a saint, because you'll never make it as a human being. It's either this world or the next. Oh, those bells.
I'm sorry. I'll go now.
You never even sent any flowers to the funeral. Not a little bunch of flowers. You had to deny me that too, didn't you? The injustice of it is almost perfect. The wrong people going hungry, the wrong people being loved, the wrong people dying. Was I really wrong to believe that there's a kind of burning virility of mind and spirit that looks for something as powerful as itself? The heaviest, strongest creatures in this world seem to be the loneliest. Like the old bear, following his own breath in the dark forest. There's no warm pack, no herd to comfort him. That voice that cries out doesn't have to be a weakling's, does it? Do you remember the first night I saw you at that grisly party? You didn't really notice me, but I was watching you all evening. You seemed to have a wonderful relaxation of spirit. I knew that was what I wanted. You've got to be really brawny to have that kind of strength, the strength to relax. It was only after we were married that I discovered that it wasn't relaxation after all. In order to relax, you first got to sweat your guts out. And as far as you were concerned, you'd never had a hair out of place or a bead of sweat anywhere. I may be a lost cause, but I thought if you loved me, it needn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I was wrong. I was wrong. I don't want to be neutral. I don't want to be a saint. I want to be a lost cause. I want to be corrupt and futile. Don't you understand? It's gone. It's gone. That helpless human being inside my body. I thought it was so safe and secure in there. Nothing could take it from me. It was mine, my responsibility. But it's lost. All I wanted was to die. I never knew what it was like. I didn't know it could be like that. I was in pain, and all I could think of was you and what I'd lost. I thought if only he could see me now, so stupid and ugly and ridiculous. This is what he's been longing for me to feel. This is what he wants to splash about in. I'm in the fire, and I'm burning, and all I want to do is die. Cost him his child and any others I might have had. But what does it matter? This is what he wanted from me. Don't you see? I'm in the mud at last. I'm groveling. I'm crawling. Oh, God.
Please, please don't. I can't. You're all right. You're all right now. Please, not anymore. We'll be together in our bear's cave and our squirrel's dray, and we'll live on honey and nuts, lots and lots of nuts, and we'll sing songs about ourselves, about warm trees and snug caves and lying in the sun, and you'll keep those big eyes on my fur and help me keep my claws in order, because I'm a bit of a soppy, scruffy sort of a bear. And I'll see that you keep that sleek, bushy tail glistening as it should, because you're a very beautiful squirrel, but you're none too bright either. So we've got to be careful. There are cruel steel traps lying about everywhere, just waiting for rather mad, slightly satanic, and very timid little animals. Right? Poor squirrels.
Poor bears. Oh, poor bears.
Curtain.
Oi.
Hi.